Hey, have you recorded much acoustic music?
Yeah, some.
Mm-hmm.
Piano,
Sure.
and guitar.
Talk
Uh,
about some of the maybe the acoustic blues guitar sessions you've done.
well, one of my favorite guys was Johnny B. Moore until he had a stroke,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, because he was amazing as a guitar player. Um, they used to have a thing at Blue Chicago where they'd have an acoustic set. I don't remember. It might have been like Friday before 9 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and typically they would have Johnny B. doing this solo thing, and it's he was amazing because he was playing rhythm and lead simultaneously, and sometimes the bass line as well,
Mm-hmm.
all as one thing. I mean, the guy was unbelievable, and he's tapping his foot, so he's playing bass drum at the same time. And working with him was really something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, some of the guys have done acoustic here. Jimmy Burns has done a little bit of acoustic.
Mm-hmm. Did you keep?
Lurie Bell
Uh-huh.
has done some acoustic stuff here.
Who is the? You recorded a blues guy back in the early '90s, and it was an acoustic record.
Jesse Thomas.
Jesse Thomas. John Primer played on
Yeah,
it.
right.
What was that session like?
Well, that was the first session done at the studio. It wasn't even really completed. The glass wasn't even in, separating the control room from the studio. And we did it in the control room.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even use the studio at that
Mm-hmm.
time. We weren't quite ready. And then Jody Christian came and played some piano, and
Yeah.
we had an upright, and we just wheeled it to the door and threw a mic up, and that's how that session was done. That was pretty informal.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Usually, when I record acoustic guitar, I especially like to use a Neumann KM86. It's a small condenser microphone, and I understand it was a microphone that was really popular at Motown. They used almost exclusively, from what I've heard, KM86. It's a really great mic. We have one of them here. I've
Mm-hmm.
been trying to find a match for it
What is
on
it about the
eBay.
sound that you like?
Well, it has the fullness, but when you go to the large condenser mics, it
Mm-hmm.
almost sounds too dark or boxy, and it doesn't have that. It has just a nice, light, airy feel about
Mm-hmm.
it. And that's my favorite mic for acoustic guitar.
Mm-hmm. Are there any blues artists that you really want to record that you really want to work with that are on your A list that you want to bring into the studio?
Well, we're doing a session tonight with Quintus McCormick, and I really like working with him.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little surprised on his first album. He had a demo disc that he was kind of selling off the bandstand, and he was trying to get Delmark to record him with that. And it really wasn't much. I didn't dislike it, but it certainly did not prepare me for what he brought into the studio when we did his first record,
Hmm.
Hey Jody, which is, for me, one of the best records we've done in the last few years, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Quintus is quite a talented guy, both as a singer and a songwriter and a guitar player. He can play straight blues, he can play R&B, and so we're doing his second record starting tonight. So as
Mm-hmm.
soon as you leave, I'm starting to set up, and looking forward to that. I don't know. I mean, there's so many guys out there. It's hard to really say, one guy that's out there that maybe, who knows, one day a great album might come out, Carlos Johnson. He's
Mm-hmm.
a great guitar player here in town. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've never really spoken to him about doing a record. I've heard a couple of the records that he's recorded on. I haven't been that impressed by them. Carlos, if you're out there listening, I think you're a great guitar player, and I know you can make a great record.
Yeah, and just quickly talk about some of the, in addition to Quintus, maybe a couple of the other new releases on Delmark.
Mm-hmm. Well, we recently came out with a record by a guy by the name of James Kynes.
Mm-hmm.
He used to live here back in the 70s and actually toured Europe with Lurie Bell and Billy Branch. But eventually he relocated to Iowa. And Kevin Johnson, who's our promo guy here, is kind of a big fan of his. And we have a new record out on him. That's a nice record. He's more of like a boogie guitar player, you know. You're not going to hear like solos with a gazillion notes and all that
Mhm.
stuff. He's more kind of, let's say, in a hound dog kind of bag
Mhm.
where it's more boogie guitar, but it's still a lot of fun. And he's a good singer-songwriter, and
Mhm.
he comes forward with the story, you know.
Yeah.
Zora Young is another one of our artists that has made some really nice records, including a record recently that she made in France called The French Connection. Really nice record. We're coming out with a record soon by Grenée Louise,
Mhm.
with Tom Holland and Carlos Showers playing guitar.
Mhm.
Some of it was done here in the studio, and then some of it was recorded live at Blue Chicago.
Mhm.
And what else have we had? Eddie C. Campbell.
Mhm.
I engineered that record for Dick Sherman producing. That's a really nice record. Got a lot of attention, and they're talking about doing a follow-up maybe this year.
Mhm.
He's very popular with the guitar publications.
Yeah.
I think they did a few. He got a few stories at the time.
Delmark's always a long history, I should say, of recording the West Side guitar sound from Otis Rush, Magic Sam, of course, Buddy Guy, Luther Allison, Eddie C. Campbell, and I hear you guys are reissuing the classic West Side Soul.
Yeah.
That's been reissued.
West Side Soul is being repackaged in a digipack, an 8-panel digipack with a lot of rare photos that have never been seen before. And we're also using the original 1967 mix that Stu Black did.
Mm.
It was recorded to analog tape at the time. And
So how has that album been remixed since then, and by whom?
well, it has not been remixed. See, we're reverting back to the original mix from 1967. It was originally recorded on a half-inch 4-track tape.
Mhm.
And back in the super early days of CDs, it was Bob's thinking that with digital, you would be able to do mixing and have less hiss. And, you know, he might have been right about that theoretically, but I don't, in retrospect, I don't think it was a really great idea to remix that record. You know, it was only 4 channels, and really there's not that much hiss on it. And it was just a perfect mix. And I think while there might have been less hiss, there was also a little less brilliance in the CD version that we've had out all this time. And so now you're going to really hear the brilliance of the original mix with the cymbals and the brightness the way it really should be heard. And since there was an alternate take added to the CD version when we reverted back to that mix, I did have to yank the original master tapes out and remix the alternate take to match the Stu Black mix from 1967. Because they didn't mix the alternate take back then. Only the master takes were used. It's kind of interesting though when I was looking back at the log sheet for the stat sheet for the recording session to see if maybe we could squeeze one more alternate take. I mean, look, we're going to repackage it, you know, if there's another take out there. But there were literally only 2 more takes that were even recorded. And so, and they weren't very good, and you know, you don't want to bring the album down, but it's just amazing how what a great album it is, and with in addition to all the master take, there was only 2 or 3 other takes even recorded.
Did it say how long the session was?
No, it was recorded on 2 sessions. It was probably 2 4-hour sessions, and that was probably it, and probably no overdubs.
And what about Hoodoo Man?
Well, Hoodoo Man was not even a multi-track recording. It was recorded live to 2-track. It was just, I mean, there may have been multi-track at that time, but it was right on the verge of when it was just coming out. And so it was recorded also, I think, in two sessions, which typically those days was about 4 hours each.
And were those both recorded at Universal Studios?
They were both recorded at Sound Studio, pretty sure.
Where was
Sound Studio... I'd have to go look up the address. It was downtown somewhere, either on Michigan or Wabash. I think it was Michigan, South Michigan. And that was where most of Delmark's classic jazz and blues records were recorded. And Stu Black was the engineer on many of them. We don't know Stu's whereabouts. So, Stu, if you hear this and you're out there, contact us.
All right, Steve.
Thank you.
Great talking to you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.